My dad tried to rewrite the will to favor my sister, cutting me out of $600,000 in assets. The moment I found out, I felt like the ground had vanished beneath my feet. Anger, betrayal, and disbelief hit me all at once. This wasn't just about money. It was about trust, legacy, and the bond one thought existed between us as father and son. My name is Lucas, and I am 37 years old. For most of my life, I believe my dad saw me as his equal, his son who had worked hard, built a career, and stood by him through thick and thin. But when I learned that he had been quietly trying to change everything behind my back, favoring my sister, Claire, I realized the truth was much darker. It all began one afternoon when I received a call from an attorney's office. At first, I thought it was just routine paperwork regarding my dad's estate planning. Instead, the lawyer asked me a simple but chilling question. Are you aware your father is in the process of drafting a new will that excludes you entirely? I froze. Excludes me? Completely? I thought it had to be some mistake. Dad had always been vocal about splitting things evenly between me and Claire. Our family home, the small vacation cabin up north, and even his retirement savings. Everything was supposed to be shared fairly. But now, it seemed he had been persuaded otherwise. My hand shook as I hung up the phone. I couldn't stop imagining Claire sitting across from him, convincing him that she deserved more. She had always been his princess, the one who got away with everything growing up. But to erase me completely from his will? That felt like war. That evening, I drove to my father's house. My heart pounded the entire way there, knowing a confrontation was inevitable. I replayed 1,000 scenarios in my head, each one ending with me demanding an explanation. But when I walked in and saw him sitting calmly in his chair, sipping tea as though nothing had happened, I realized this was going to be far more complicated than I ever imagined. That I looked him straight in the eyes and said, "Dad, I know about the will. Is it true you're cutting me out?" The silence that followed was suffocating. His expression hardened, and with a quiet, almost dismissive voice, he said, "Lucas, sometimes one child deserves more than the other. That's just how life works." And in that moment, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. After leaving my father's house that night, I drove aimlessly through the city, headlights reflecting off wet pavement. His words kept repeating in my head. Sometimes one child deserves more than the other. It cut deeper than I expected. I wasn't just losing money. I was losing my place in his eyes as a son. The next morning, I called Claire. My hands trembled as I dialed, but I needed to hear her side. She answered on the second ring, her voice unervingly sweet, almost rehearsed. "Lucas," she said, "I was wondering when you'd find out." That sentence alone told me everything. She wasn't shocked. She wasn't confused. She knew. "Claire, what the hell did you say to him?" I demanded, my voice shaking. She sighed, and for a moment I could almost picture her rolling her eyes, the same way she did when we were kids and she manipulated our parents into siding with her. "I just told Dad the truth," she replied. "You have your career, your apartment, your savings. You're fine. I've always been the one who needs more support. And Dad agrees." Her words made my blood boil. I had built everything I had by myself. No handouts, no shortcuts. Meanwhile, she had stumbled from job to job, crisis to crisis, always leaning on my father for bailouts. And now she had convinced him that entitlement was need. "You're stealing my future," I spat back. "No, Lucas," she said calmly, almost smugly. "I'm just taking what was always meant for me." The line went silent after that, but the weight of her words stayed with me. She had positioned herself as the victim and me as the privileged one, twisting the truth so that my father's guilt fed directly into her greed. Later that week, I received an official notice from the attorney's office, a draft of the new will. I wasn't just reduced in share, I was completely erased. Claire stood to inherit the family home, the vacation cabin, and nearly $600,000 in assets. I was a ghost in my father's legacy. That night, I sat alone at my kitchen table with the papers spread out before me. My chest felt heavy, like someone had pressed a stone against it. For the first time in my life, I realized that my fight wasn't just against Claire's manipulation. It was against my father's blindness, and deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The morning after I received the draft of the will, I couldn't shake the suffocating pressure in my chest. Sleep had been impossible, and my coffee tasted bitter, useless against the storm raging in my head. I needed answers, not guesses. So I called the attorney's office and scheduled a meeting. When I arrived, the waiting room felt colder than usual. The receptionist gave me a sympathetic look, almost as if she already knew the weight of what I was about to hear. After a few minutes, I was ushered into a large office with shelves lined with thick legal binders. Across the desk sat Mr. Harlan, my father's estate lawyer. He looked at me with the kind of pity I despised. "Lucas," he began, adjusting his glasses, "I understand this is difficult, but your father is within his rights to make changes to his will. I wanted you to know as a courtesy, since the changes are significant." "Significant?" I snapped. "He's erasing me completely. Don't call it significant. Call it what it is, betrayal." Mr. Harlan let out a slow sigh. "I have to remain neutral in family matters. But, off the record, you should know this wasn't his idea entirely." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice as if afraid the walls might hear. "Your sister has been very involved in these discussions, more than you might expect. She wasn't just present, she was persuasive. She brought documents, arguments, even personal letters she wrote to him outlining why she deserved everything. And your father, in his current state, is susceptible." I clenched my fists. Personal letters? Persuasive arguments? Claire hadn't just whispered poison into his ear. She had orchestrated a full campaign to cut me out. "Is this legal?" I asked, my voice shaking. Mr. Harlan hesitated. "It's legal if your father signs willingly. But I will tell you something I shouldn't. The changes haven't been finalized yet. The draft is only that, a draft. Nothing is binding until he signs." A flicker of hope sparked inside me, though it was quickly smothered by anger. Claire was moving fast, but the ink wasn't dry. As I walked out of the office, the city streets seemed louder, harsher, as if the world itself was pushing me into a corner. Claire wasn't just manipulating our father. She was preparing to erase me from his memory, legally and financially. But now I had one advantage: time, and I promised myself I would use it to fight back. I didn't waste a day. The moment I left Mr. Harlan's office, I knew I had to confront my father again. This time not as a son begging for fairness, but as a man demanding the truth. When I arrived at his house, Claire's car was already parked in the driveway. My jaw clenched as I walked up the steps. I didn't bother knocking. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The sight before me nearly made my blood boil. Claire was sitting comfortably at the dining table, sipping tea, while my father listened to her with that same glazed look in his eyes I'd seen before. She was mid-sentence, her voice soft but dripping with manipulation. "Dad," I said firmly, slamming the door behind me. Both their heads turned. "Lucas," my father muttered, shifting uncomfortably. "This isn't a good time." I ignored him and looked straight at Claire. "I know exactly what you've been doing. The letters, the meetings with the lawyer, twisting his mind so you can take everything." She smirked, not even pretending to deny it. "If you had been more involved with Dad instead of running off to your own life, maybe he wouldn't see things this way." "That's not true," I shot back. "You've been feeding him lies." And I talked to Mr. Harlan. He told me the will isn't final yet. My father's eyes darted between us. "Lucas, stop this," he said, his voice shaky. "Claire's been here for me. She's taken care of me when you haven't. Maybe she deserves more." That sentence shattered something inside me. "More?" I barked. "She wants everything, Dad. She's not helping you. She's using you. Can't you see that?" The air was thick with tension. Claire leaned back in her chair, calm as ever, her arms crossed like she was enjoying the show. My father, however, looked pale, his hands trembling slightly on the table. And then, in a burst of frustration I couldn't hold back, I shouted, "If you go through with this, you're not just cutting me out of the will, you're cutting me out of this family." Silence filled the room. My words hung heavy in the air, almost echoing against the walls. My father's face twisted with conflict, but he didn't speak. Claire, on the other hand, smiled faintly, as if she had just won another round that I stormed out, slamming the door behind me. My chest burned, My hands shook and my mind spun in circles. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. My father wasn't as certain as he pretended to be. He was torn, and that sliver of doubt might be my only chance to turn this around. A week passed after that confrontation, but I couldn't shake the image of Claire's smug smile. I knew she wasn't done, and I wasn't either. One evening, as I was sorting through old boxes in my apartment, my phone buzzed. It was an email from Mr. Harlan. The subject line made my heart stop. Documents you should see. Inside was a PDF attachment. I hesitated before opening it, afraid of what I might find, but curiosity outweighed the fear. When the file loaded, my jaw dropped. It wasn't just the draft of the will. It was a series of letters Claire had written to my father. Copies. Proof that I scrolled through, each page dripping with emotional blackmail. She wrote about how she had always been the one by his side, how she had sacrificed her own opportunities to take care of him, how I was distant and ungrateful. She painted me as a selfish man who abandoned his father while she remained a loyal daughter. But then, midway through, I found something damning. One letter wasn't written to my father at all. It was addressed to Mr. Harlan. Please make sure these changes are made quickly, she wrote. I don't want Lucas to find out until it's too late. My hand shook as I read those words. This wasn't just persuasion. This was scheming. She wasn't asking for fairness. She was plotting to shut me out entirely. The next day, I met Mr. Harlan in person. He looked uneasy, tapping his pen against the desk as he spoke. Lucas, I shouldn't have shared those documents, but I believe you deserve to know the truth. Your sister is crossing lines. If your father signs the will under this kind of pressure, it could be contested in court. Contested. That word lit a spark in me. For the first time, I had leverage. Real, tangible evidence that Claire's influence wasn't just persuasion. It bordered on coercion. I walked out of the office, the papers tucked under my arm. I knew the fight was about to shift. Claire thought she had already won, but now I had the weapon that could destroy her carefully crafted lies, and I wasn't going to hesitate to use it. I didn't plan it. I didn't rehearse it. But the moment I walked into my father's house with those papers in my hand, I knew I wasn't leaving without forcing the truth out of Claire. She was there, of course. She always was lately. Sitting beside him on the couch, pretending to be the devoted daughter, while I stood in the doorway with my heart pounding. Dad, I said firmly, we need to talk. And Claire, you'd better stay, because this involves you. Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't flinch. She leaned back, arms crossed, wearing that same look of superiority I'd grown to despise. That I pulled the stack of printed letters from my jacket and dropped them on the coffee table. The pages fanned out, some sliding toward my father. Recognize these? I asked as he leaned forward, confused, adjusting his glasses as he picked one up. His eyes moved quickly over the words, and I saw his expression shift. First confusion, then hurt, and finally disbelief that Claire's calm exterior cracked for just a moment. Where did you get those? She demanded. That doesn't matter, I snapped. What matters is that you weren't just asking for more. You were riding behind my back, begging Dad's lawyer to push changes through before I even knew. You wanted me erased. My father's face turned pale. Claire, is this true? His voice trembled, heavy with disappointment. She stammered at first, trying to collect herself. Dad, listen. I only did it because Lucas doesn't care about you the way I do. He's busy with his own life, and I'm the one who's been here for you. That's not what those letters say. I interrupted, my voice rising. Those letters are full of lies. You painted me as selfish, ungrateful, cold. You twisted everything to make yourself look like the victim. For a moment, the room was silent, except for the sound of my father's shaky breathing. Then he looked at Claire with a pain in his eyes I had never seen before. Claire, how could you? Her composure finally broke. She slammed her fist on the table. Because I deserve it, she shouted. I've given everything to this family, and I'm tired of always coming second to him. For once, I wanted it all. Her words hung in the air like a curse. My father leaned back slowly, his hands trembling. The illusion was shattered. There was no more pretense of innocence, no more carefully crafted lies. Claire had confessed, and there was no undoing it. That I stood there, my chest heaving, watching the truth finally sink into my father's eyes. For the first time, he saw her not as the dutiful daughter, but as the manipulator she truly was, and I knew nothing in our family would ever be the same again. For a long while after Claire's outburst, my father said nothing. He just sat there, staring at the crumpled letter in his hands, as if the words might somehow rearrange themselves into something less damning. The silence was thick, almost unbearable. Finally, he looked up, his eyes glassy but resolute. "Claire," he said quietly, "I trusted you. I believed you when you told me Lucas didn't care. I thought I was doing the right thing. But now I see what you've been doing." She shifted nervously, her confidence draining. "Dad, no, you don't understand. I understand enough," he interrupted, his voice suddenly stronger than I'd heard in months. "You lied to me. You tried to poison me against my own son. And you nearly succeeded." Her face twisted with panic. "I only wanted what's fair." "No," he said firmly, slamming the letter down on the table. "You wanted everything." I felt my throat tighten. For the first time in this entire nightmare, I saw clarity in my father's eyes. He wasn't under a spell anymore. He turned toward me then, his expression heavy with guilt. "Lucas, I owe you an apology. I should have spoken to you before letting her influence me. I was wrong." The words hit me harder than I expected. For years, I've been waiting for him to finally see me, to see past Claire's games. And now, finally, he did. But Claire wasn't ready to give up. She stood abruptly, her voice rising in desperation. "You can't just change your mind now. You already promised me everything. You can't take it back." My father straightened in his chair. "Watch me," he said coldly. Her face went pale, and for once, she had no clever retort. That night, as I left my father's house, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief because he had finally seen the truth. Dread because I knew Claire, and she wasn't done. She'd lost this round, but I could feel it in my bones. She was already plotting her next move, and whatever it was, it would be ruthless. For a few days, things felt quieter. My father seemed lighter, almost relieved after exposing Claire's manipulation. We even had dinner together without tension, something I hadn't experienced with him in years. But deep down, I knew it couldn't last. Claire wasn't the type to admit defeat. The storm came sooner than I expected. One evening, as I returned home from work, I found a thick envelope shoved under my apartment door. At first, I thought it was junk mail until I saw the letterhead. Legal notice. That, and my stomach dropped as I tore it open. Inside was a formal letter from a lawyer representing Claire. She was filing a petition accusing me of undue influence over my father and claiming I was pressuring him to reverse his will against his true wishes. I almost laughed from the absurdity, but the weight of it crushed me. She was turning the tables, painting me as the manipulator. In black and white, she accused me of coercion, emotional abuse, and greed. Every line was a twisted mirror of what she herself had done. That night, I drove straight to my father's house, letter in hand. He opened the door, confusion etched on his face. "What's wrong, Lucas?" I shoved the letter toward him. "Read this." His hands trembled as he scanned the words. His expression darkened with every sentence. She's accusing you of manipulation," he muttered, disbelief dripping from his tone. "She's desperate," I said bitterly. "She knows you've seen through her lies, and this is her way of fighting back. But if this goes to court, it'll get ugly fast." My father sank into his armchair, covering his face with his hands. "I can't believe she'd do this to her own brother." "Believe it," I said, my voice low but steady, "because she's not finished until she gets everything." For the first time, I saw a real fear in my father's eyes. Not just fear of losing control of his estate, but fear of what his daughter had become. And I realized then that this wasn't just a family feud anymore. It was a war. The days that followed were a blur of phone calls and paperwork. Claire had made her move, and if I didn't fight back, her accusations could stain my name forever. I scheduled an emergency meeting with Mr. Harlan, who looked both weary and determined when I arrived. "Lucas," he said, adjusting his glasses, "I've seen these tactics before. Your sister is trying to scare you into backing down. But if this goes to court, she'll have to provide evidence. And we both know she doesn't have much besides her word." I leaned forward, my voice tight. "But her word has carried weight before. My father believed her lies once. What if the court does too?" Before Mr. Harlan could answer, the door opened. To my surprise, his assistant stepped in, carrying a small folder. Mr. Harlan, I thought you'd want to see this, she said. She handed it over, her eyes briefly meeting mine with a flicker of sympathy. Inside were transcripts of email exchanges between Claire and another attorney she had consulted months ago. In them, she detailed her strategy to convince our father to change the will, even admitting she might have to stretch the truth about me to make it work. It was the smoking gun. Proof not only of her scheming, but of her willingness to fabricate lies against me. I felt a surge of relief, mixed with anger, so sharp it almost burned. This could destroy her case, I muttered at MR. Harlan nodded slowly. It could, yes, but you need to be careful. Claire won't back down easily. If she realizes you have this, she'll escalate even further. That evening, I brought the folder to my father. He read every word, his hands trembling. When he finished, he looked at me with tears in his eyes. Lucas, I don't know how I let it get this far. She's my daughter, but what she's doing is unforgivable. I put a hand on his shoulder. Dad, this isn't just about money anymore. It's about truth. And I'm not going to let her drag us both through the mud without a fight. For the first time, I felt like we were on the same side, father and son united against the lies that threatened to tear us apart. But deep down, I knew the final battle was still ahead. The courtroom was colder than I expected. My hands were damp as I sat beside Mr. Harlan, waiting for the judge to arrive. Across the aisle sat Claire, her face tight with defiance, her lawyer whispering in her ear. She didn't even glance at me. When the proceedings began, Claire's attorney wasted no time painting me as the villain. He spoke of manipulation, coercion, and greed, describing me as a son who pressured his father into reversing his true wishes. Each word made my stomach twist, not because it was true, but because I knew just how convincing her lies could be. Then it was our turn. Mr. Harlan presented the letters, the emails, the transcripts, piece by piece dismantling Claire's story until it collapsed under the weight of her own words. The courtroom grew still as the judge read one email aloud. Claire's own admission that she might have to stretch the truth about me to secure the inheritance. Claire's face went pale. Her confidence drained. And for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. When my father took the stand, his voice trembled but carried a sincerity no lawyer could replicate. I was misled, he said. My daughter, Claire, told me lies about my son. I'll let those lies blind me. But Lucas has always been there when it mattered. I see that now, and I do not want him erased from my life or from my legacy. The words hit me harder than any judgment could. For years, I had doubted whether he truly valued me as his son. Hearing it in front of strangers, under oath, felt like the first honest bridge rebuilt between us. The judge didn't deliberate long. The petition was dismissed, Claire's accusations thrown out. My father's will would remain unchanged until he chose otherwise. Without her manipulation, as we left the courthouse, Claire stormed past us, her eyes burning with hatred. But I didn't chase after her. For the first time, I didn't need her approval, her games, or her validation. I had the truth, and I had my father back. That night, sitting with him over a simple dinner, I realized something important. Money may spark battles, but it also reveals the truth about people's hearts. Claire had shown hers, and painful as it was, I was finally free from her shadow. Those listening until now, I want to thank you. If there's one lesson I've learned, it's this. Family can betray you in ways you never imagine, but you can't let greed define who you are. Stand for the truth, even if it costs you everything. In the end, it's the only thing that lasts. And if my story resonated with you, I'd truly appreciate it if you subscribed and left a like. It helps me keep sharing stories like this one, and maybe, just maybe, it'll help someone else going through the same kind of storm.